Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and welcome aboard the Eastern Express. Once, the Turkic world was a patchwork of empires and successor states. Today, its leaders want you to believe something new is being born, a political bloc with teeth in Eurasia. This week, the mountain town of Gabala in Azerbaijan hosted the 12th summit of the Organization of Turkic States. Heads of state and government from Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and observer members converge not just for ceremony, but with ambition. So on this episode, we'll bring to the fore what the Organization of Turkic State is and what can it become. Without further ado, let's take a look at our latest report to find out more.
Azerbaijan has taken over the chairmanship of the Organization of Turkic States, with President Ilham Aliyev unveiling bold initiatives aimed at deepening regional cooperation. Speaking at the 12th OTS summit, Aliyev proposed hosting joint military exercises in Azerbaijan in 2026, emphasizing the bloc's growing role as a geopolitical force. Aliyev also outlined plans for a green energy corridor to link Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Turkey and Europe, part of a broader push to boost energy security and sustainability. By 2030, Azerbaijan aims to generate 40% of its energy from renewable sources. The Turkish delegation praised the direction of the alliance.
Strengthening the economies, infrastructure, technology and defense capacities of Turkic states makes each country stronger. When strong states unite, a stronger bloc emerges.
Connectivity was another key theme, with Aliyev describing the Zangezur corridor as a new transport artery, vital to linking the Middle Corridor and North-South routes. Cargo traffic through the region has surged by 90% since 2022. The summit also marked the end of Kyrgyzstan's term as chair. President Sadir Japarov reflected on a year of active diplomacy, including over 120 high-level events and a roadmap for economic integration.
And now, let's zone in on the East-planning portion of our show. Let's take a closer look at the Organization of Turkic States, representing over 160 million people. The bloc drives collaboration in trade, transport, energy, and education in the region.
The Organization of Turkic States is an intergovernmental alliance of nations with shared Turkic heritage aimed at fostering cooperation across Eurasia. Established in 2009 through the Nakhchivan Agreement by Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, it became a formal organization in 2021. Uzbekistan joined as a full member in 2019, while Hungary, Turkmenistan and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus participate as observers. Spanning 4.25 million square kilometers, the OTS focuses on collaboration in trade, transport, energy and education. It facilitates cross-border commerce, supports joint infrastructure projects and promotes cultural initiatives like the Turkic University Union. The Turkic World Vision 2040 outlines goals for stronger political unity and global influence, including partnerships with the United Nations and the Organizations of Islamic Cooperation. Representing over 160 million people, the OTS strengthens economic ties and cultural preservation. Its annual summits address regional security and sustainable development, positioning the organization as a key player in Eurasian geopolitics.
And now, let's take a look at the issue in greater detail. The Organization of Turkic States, rebranded in 2021 from the Turkic Council, has long been clouded by questions. Can culture really translate into politics, or will it remain a soft, symbolic alliance? Under Turkey's current diplomacy, Ankara frames engagement with its Turkic neighbors around equality, mutual respect, and sovereignty, avoiding overt hegemony. But beneath that rhetoric lies the reality of power asymmetry. Turkey's influence in Central Asia through trade, language, and cultural outreach is considerable. The structure of the OTS gives Ankara both leverage and legitimacy. At the summit, one key pillar was transport and logistics. The OTS wants to build, not just talk the talk. But every route it designs must navigate rival influences. Russian connectivity schemes, China's Belt and Road corridors, Iranian sensitivities, and the territorial legacy of Soviet borders. Another focus is institutional consolidation, more binding decisions and clearer lines of authority. The Gabala summit cements the rotating chairmanship passing to Azerbaijan. Still, the constraints are real. International regulations impose limit on how far integration can go, especially when it projects across contested territories or linked regions like Armenia or Iran. The Turkic world's internal diversity is vast, from Kazakhstan's careful pragmatism to Uzbekistan's balanced diplomacy and Azerbaijan's assertive posture. For Turkey and Azerbaijan especially, the OTS is more than an ethnic cultural gathering. It's a bid to show that Turkicness can be a base of power, not just identity. At the summit, President Erdogan urged Turkic states to take a more active role in regional security, not as passive members, but as joint actors. But can this unity survive geopolitics? Power politics remains unavoidable. Russia's shadow looms large in Central Asia. China's economic weight is enormous. Iran watches to the south, and the West keeps its eyes on the South Caucasus. For the OTS to matter, it must move beyond symbolism, issuing binding decisions and generating real economic and military synergy. If it fails, it will be remembered as a network of brotherhood, warm words, cultural congresses, and soft power, but not a strategic force. If it succeeds, it could reshape how Eurasian influence is organized, not through post-Soviet blocs or Chinese-led corridors alone, but through a new Turkic spine linking East with West. For now, the OTS remains at a crossroads. It is a form of ambition built on shared languages, but divergent interests. Turkey pushes for leadership, Azerbaijan for recognition, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan for balance, and each, in its own way, for autonomy. Beneath these differences lie a shared understanding that in a world of fragmented alliances, even cultural unity is a strategic asset worth cultivating. And now, here to shed more light on the issue is Dr. Konrad Zasov, a lecturer from Faculty of Oriental Studies, University of Warsaw. Sir, and welcome to Eastern Express.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So today we are trying to examine the OTS's attempt at turning it from a more cultural exchange sort of organization to something with actual political power. How optimistic are you when it comes to this attempt, and do you think that it can become something with any sort of teeth?
Well, at least when we hear this declaration, it's not only about cultural cooperation, not only about economic deepening of the economic cooperation, transport cooperation, but also there are some statements of the at least experts, but I think it's also mentioned by some politicians from these countries that the goal of this organization will also have this security dimension. Of course, there's much talk about cybersecurity, this kind of cooperation, but also I think the issues of hard security are discussed, maybe not so openly, but this topic is becoming more and more important for Organization of Turkic States. So, from what I heard, there are going to be planned common military exercises of all these Turkic states. So in the past, there were already several military exercises, many military exercises when it comes to Turkish-Azerbaijani cooperation, some exercises done by Azerbaijan together with Kazakhstan on the Caspian Sea, but something involving all the countries of this organization that can be something new and showing the interest in this serious not only cultural, economical, but also political and military integration of these countries.
Traditionally, these countries have a fragmentation issue largely due to being pulled apart in so many different directions, be it China, Russia, or even some Western influence. Do you think that, like I mentioned, the security is something that they are very conscious about can be the glue that hold these countries together into one organization?
Well, yes, it comes. I think together with this will, common will to have economic cooperation, because in this let's say insecure environment of Eurasia, so. There is Russian Federation to the north, with some aggressive plans also regarding the regions of Caucasus and Central Asia. There is China with its economic pressure on Central Asia. So simply, these countries want to cooperate, and this cooperation will have or already have these two dimensions. So one is economic dimension, strengthening economic security. The other is military cooperation, which is only at the stage of initializing this kind of common activities. When it comes to the whole organization of Turkic states, because if we look at particular bilateral military cooperation, especially between Turkey and Azerbaijan, Turkey and Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, there is already it's already advanced. So the question is whether all the countries may cooperate, but I think they have this common interest at the moment. Also, when we look at the political processes in Central Asia, because majority of Turkic countries, they are Central Asian countries. This Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Central Asia, Central Asian nations, especially Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, the two biggest ones of the region. Previously, they were rather competing and trying to become a regional leader. Now what we see, it's rather an attempt to cooperate, to have mutual advantages from this cooperation. So even on the level of this Central Asian region, there's a lot of economic, political, military cooperation at the moment, plus good relationship with Azerbaijan in the South Caucasus and Turkey. Yes, so coming back to your first question, I think there are some serious chances for deepening of this cooperation.
And how important is it for Azerbaijan to be leading this organization right now?
Of course, Azerbaijan is doing a lot to improve its position in international community, to show that it's an active state, starting or initiating many international activities. And I think this activity within this Turkic format or OTS format is very important for Azerbaijan. And there were already several meetings organized by Azerbaijan last year in Shusha in Karabakh. Azerbaijan also has good relationship with Hungary. So Hungary is not Turkic nation, but with some also cultural common roots with the Turkic nations and language roots, so linguistic roots. So Hungary is also involved in this process, and I think Azerbaijan is also interesting in this cooperation with some countries. Not only from the OTS, but there is this new initiative OTS Plus, so to involve some other countries, not necessarily Turkic countries, but those countries willing to cooperate with the OTS.
All right, so with these nations stepping up their cooperation, do you think that this might come into any sort of conflict of interest with other power players like China and Russia, which would perhaps result in an invitation of some sort of influence by these other countries?
Yes, among those countries, especially the Central Asian countries, in the past they used to be very careful not to make Russia suspicious about this kind of integration, Turkic integration or cooperation attempts. Of course, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a significant hegemony of Russian Federation in the region, especially Central Asian region. So, especially countries like Kazakhstan, which with extremely long land border with Russian Federation and with huge Russian-speaking minorities in the north of the country, they always had to be careful about any statements about any integration excluding Russia. But now, after Russia became involved in the aggression war in Ukraine, Russia's position in the region is much weaker. It was already weaker in recent decades because also due to the economic influence of China and economic weakness of Russia, but especially after 2022, these countries have new opportunity to cooperate together, and of course, it's it's something which is not perceived as a positive trend in Moscow. But I don't think Moscow has any tools to influence this process at the moment. As for China, I think China is not worried about this process because this is also about, or especially about the strengthening of economic cooperation and logistic cooperation and transport cooperation. So investing in the transport routes on the so-called Silk Road. So here I mean, of course, this road from China to Europe. So naturally, China will also have some advantages from this cooperation, from especially what in Azerbaijan is called the Middle Corridor project. And I should also mention that it's also opportunity for the European Union states because they will also be at the other end of this Silk Road and also may have some economic advantages from this project.
So we're perhaps seeing a lot of ripple effects from this as well. Thank you so much for your input and insight. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on the Eastern Express.
Thank you very much.
And now we're moving on to the Eastern News Flash, a series of all the other stories from the East that you don't want to miss. Russia is accusing the UK of plotting a covert sabotage operation in Europe, a claim experts says fits into a broader campaign of disinformation. The alleged plan involves pro-Ukrainian Russians and Chinese equipment in what analysts call a psychological operation aimed at NATO.
Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR, now claims the United Kingdom is preparing a staged attack on a European port. According to Moscow, pro-Ukrainian Russians, currently fighting for Kiev, would strike either a Ukrainian Navy vessel or a civilian ship, using Chinese-made underwater gear to falsely implicate Beijing. The irony, analysts note, is that China openly supports Russia's war effort. The SVR's narrative, however, suggests the UK is trying to frame China, despite its known alliance with Moscow. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, says this accusation is part of Russia's Phase Zero strategy, a mix of psychological and covert operations designed to destabilize Europe and prepare conditions for potential future conflict with NATO. Recent months have seen a surge in hybrid attacks, sabotage, GPS jamming, drone incursions, and arson across NATO states. ISW warns these are not signs of imminent war, but rather groundwork for escalation.
Russia is convicting citizens for treason at a record pace, with nearly 2 people sentenced every working day in 2025. Ukrainian intelligence says the surge reflects growing paranoia and deepening repression inside the Kremlin.
In just 6 months, Russian courts have handed down 224 convictions for treason, espionage, and secret cooperation with foreign states, the highest number ever recorded in modern Russian history. That is nearly 2 convictions per day, involving 232 individuals, all sentenced to real prison terms. Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service says the spike reveals a regime increasingly suspicious of its own people. Most convictions, over 75%, were for treason, a sharp rise from last year. And with terrorism cases also climbing, analysts expect over 500 treason-related convictions by year's end. Russia's judicial system operates under a veil of secrecy. Around 60% of defendants are marked as information hidden, and trials are often closed. The repression is part of a broader authoritarian shift. Russia was ranked the least peaceful country in the world in 2025 by the Global Peace Index, a reflection of its war in Ukraine and internal crackdown.
A major green energy project linking Central Asia to Europe won't be ready until the next decade. The Trans-Caspian power line, backed by Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan, is still in its early planning stages.
A Trans-Caspian energy corridor designed to transmit wind and solar power from Central Asia to Europe is facing long delays. According to Uzbekistan's Spot News, the project, involving Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, won't be operational before 2030. ACWA Power, a Saudi-based company, is building massive wind farms in the region, including a $6.2 billion project in Uzbekistan, with a projected capacity of 5 gigawatts. Some of that energy is earmarked for export. The 3 countries formed a joint venture in 2024, headquartered in Baku, to oversee the cable's construction. But officials say the key challenge now is ensuring the competitiveness of Central Asian electricity in European markets.
And that's all on this episode of Eastern Express. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.